So that's why it will give you output of 1 undefined, and then it will be 2. This is the stuff which is going on. 1 undefined and 2. This is what this output will be. In this video we are going to discuss about trickiest questions using functions and methods, like the usage of this keyword related to functions and methods. And without any delay, let's jump into video. Okay, so first of all, we have this question here, and if I didn't save this out, so just guess out the output of this question. What you think the output will be? So if you are thinking like type of A is defined and B is defined, and kind of just guess it out, and then we will tally your answer with this output. Okay, so let's console it out and see what this output will be. Weird. B is not defined. Why B is not defined? Actually, you can see like this is kind of confusing towards developers, confusing question, cause in many of the other languages like Python, A is equal to B is equal to 3, it is a valid syntax. But in JS, it is not a valid syntax. Cause why it is not a valid syntax? Because B is not even initialized here. Like B, if you do this, let me comment this all, and let me do this. Let A is equal to B is equal to 3 and equal to 3, and if you try to console this B is not defined. It is saying B is not defined. You didn't define it and you are using this B, so this is not a valid syntax. So let me comment this out again, and let's check this again. So B is not defined. You have to define it again. Let B. Okay, now it is valid. So now if we save, what we will get? False. We are getting false. And if I check the type of A here, what I will get? If I console this type here, what I am getting? It is undefined. Why it is undefined? A is even undefined here. If we console only A is not defined. It is not even undefined. A is not defined here. Why? Because in the inside of a function, all of the variables defined inside a function have a function level scope. It will not be exposed in global level scope. So you just have to keep in mind, like these variables will not be accessible outside, because we know how lexical scoping works. Like if I have to put this variable outside now and just comment this out, now this will be okay, and this function will just find out if B is defined in the function. No, then it will go outside of this function scope, and it will check in global context, global scope. Yeah, now B is defined, and that is okay. But in this scenario, variables are only defined in function level scope, so it will not be available here, which is the global level scope. Okay, or you can say window level scope. So just comment it out and comment in. And if we check this out, type of A, so we have checked this type of A is undefined here, and if we simply replace, instead of making this complex, if we just simply replace this with these things, undefined, so now what you think the answer will be? It will be true. Now it is true. Why? Cause now let me do Control Z. Now it is false. Why? Type of A is actually being printed out. Let me show to you something again. If we only console out undefined, here you can see this is being printed out in some other fashion, and this is a little grayed out. What it's mean? Okay, let's dissect it. If we simply say equal, what will happen? It is true. Why? Because whenever you check type of A, it is white, and whatever the thing in white will be, it will be treated as a string. Now this undefined is white. Type of keyword always return type of something, whatever the variable will be, in a string form. Now the undefined is in a string form. Like if we check the type of undefined, let's do again crazy thing here. Okay, type of undefined is again undefined. It should be like string, but no, because it is undefined, a primitive specific type, so it is undefined. So type of A is undefined, which is in the form of string. So now if you compare these things, type of A equal to undefined, this will be true. Why it is true? Because this undefined is also in the form of string, has a data type of string. It is not like that. If you compare this, it will be false, cause the left hand side, this is of undefined, of course, but it is in the shape of string, but this is in primitive type of undefined. Okay, so but if you compare this, this will be totally fine. Undefined, this will be true, and this will be also true, cause type of B is undefined but in the shape of data type of string. Okay, that is clear. That was the first question. So now let's move toward our next question. Okay, so our next question is this, and let me just comment it out. Okay, so now if we check and try to guess what will be the output, and if we call this method here, okay, if we call this method here you can see function, or you can say method here, myObject.func, and what you think the output of this function will be. There are plenty of consoles, and let's go one by one. So first of all, we call this func here. Okay, this is an object, and there is a function here, and then there is a console with this .foo, and then it has self.foo, and self is containing this, this, and then there is another ify functions which is like calling itself at the moment, and then here is again the same console here. So what you think the output will be? So first of all, let me tell you something interesting. So always this is always refers, or you can say have ownership of what? Of the thing which has created its parent. Like in this case, you can say this has a reference or scope of this whole object, cause which thing has created this function. Like this I will say that this, not this, cause that this is being used in this function. Who created this function? Who is the owner of this function? This object, my object, is the owner of this function. That's why that this will always refer to this, my object. Okay, let me have some representation here. That this will always have reference, or you can say ownership, towards this object, my object. Okay, now on the base of this, what you can guess the output? As this is referring toward my object, so you can simply replace, like not replace, but for conceptualization, let's replace this with all of this with my object. Now what you think the output will be? It will output as a bar, and what this will output as? Again bar, cause this my object is just placed or assigned to this keyword, and now this keyword again like have a reference, or you can say again this my object is again assigned to this self. Now when we do self.foo, it will again console as a bar. Okay, Now let's move a little step ahead into the ify function. And now if you see, this function is created inside this function. And who is the owner of this function? Owner of this function will be now this func keyword. You are getting the point? You are with me? Owner of this ify function will be now this func keyword, like this property. This func will be the owner of this ify function. And now this will not point towards my object. Instead, this will point towards func. Okay, this will point towards this. Now let me just replace this object with this. And like, there is no difference if you write my object or this, but let's just write this here. Conceptually, there is no difference if you write my object or this conceptually, but syntactically, of course, there is a difference. So if you write replace with this and just console this out, here you can see this dot foo, the first line, like at line 319, our first console, it is saying bar. Our second console, it is saying bar. And at third level, can't read properties of undefined reading foo. Okay, now this is right. If we just comment this out and say, yeah, let me explain what is happening. Now just comment this out and see this fourth console is again saying bar. Why? Because we have saved the outer reference of this keyword of my object into this variable self, and we are using now this variable. Okay, self, when we use this self keyword, then this means we are using this, because this self contains this. Okay, so now this is straightforward, but what's the issue with this line 322? What's the issue with this line? Now, as this function is the child, we can say like this function, this ify function is the child of this func. Okay, this is just be with me. Now this is a little confusing, of course. This function is created inside this func, so this func is the owner of this function, and whenever you will use this inside that function, this will refer to this func, as we already mentioned. Now this is pointing towards what? This is pointing toward func here. This keyword is pointing towards func here, cause this is defined or used inside the context of this function, this ify function. And if you don't know what ify function is, just comment down, we'll have a separate video, or just get the idea from somewhere else. Okay, so now this function is in the context of this function, func property, and we are using this inside that function, and this will refer to func. And we know if I save this out, we'll get an error, can't read properties of undefined. Why? Because we know there is no foo property inside this function. Inside this function there is no foo property, of course. That is crazy. Like, that is the place where JS get developers crazy. Okay, so there is no foo in this function, and that's why it is consoling out like foo is not defined. So okay, if I just use self again here, it will be totally fine. It will be totally fine, because self is referencing this my object, whole object here, because we have saved this reference to this self keyword. Okay, that is it. Now you should not forget how this works, because this is very important for next coming questions as well. So now if I show to you this in the global space, here you can see like this is defined at global level, but it is empty object. Just remember this point. This is very important statement. This will always be used with the context or reference of objects, functions, or some instance. Objects, instance, or some functions. This will always be used with these kind of things. Like let's suppose I do this dot name is equal to Shebi, and if I try to console this out, name is there, but if I do this dot name, it is again like populating this thing. So as this keyword is an object, empty object, so now we have set another property on this object, empty object. So now if you see this as a window, there is no like window defined on this object. But if we do this dot window is equal to window, then this is an valid syntax. And if we console this window, which is always present on global scope, then it is again valid. So this is available on global level, but it is always empty unless you don't initialize it with some properties. Okay, so now let's move towards our next example here. Okay, this is the example. So let me just remove all of the things from console and then comment out. Okay, so now again there is a secret, or there is a trickiest part of this here again. So what if here's the method, just have a quick look, like it's the object containing property and get secret identity method, and this is defined here, like this is being used here, this dot name. And if we do this, what hero dot get secret identity, and assign this method get secret identity to this new variable and try to call this variable, what will happen? Let's discuss it later. First, just console this straightforward hero dot get secret identity and see what happens. And it is printing out John Doe, of course, cause this is referencing towards this object hero. Okay, cause this is in the context of this hero object, like too much this. Okay, now if we do console of that statement, what will happen? Error, can't read properties of undefined reading name. So now, as I mentioned earlier, like this will be used with some context of objects, instances, or functions. So here we are not doing any kind of thing here, like this is a variable stole secret identity and we are calling it solely lonely, and this is printing out such an error. Why? Cause this lost its context, this keyword lost its context. So let's see what happen if we call it using this. Again, hero.stole identity function is not a function, cause on hero this stole identity is not defined at all. So you should only have to do what hero.get secret identity to get whatever the identity is, cause in this way this keyword is bind towards this object and will only be used in the context of this object. Okay, if you didn't get any tricky thing here, just comment down, we'll have a separate video. But this is a cool stuff, literally this is cool stuff. Now let's see our next example, which is kind of this. Let me comment it out. Okay, so this is again a ify function which is calling its, I think we should remove this ify function. I think you are going to be confused, and let's have name of this function and just call out this function here. Okay, now we are defining this function and calling it out here. Okay, so what is happening here? What will be the output of this console X and console Y? What you think the output will be? We are using try catch block here. Okay, and here we are throwing error and here we are catching it, and here is the X already coming as an error, and we are again defining our variables and consoling this out here. So what you think the output will be? So okay, let first dissect together and see what happens. As we know, all of the declarations using var keyword are hoisted. So what will happen? Like if we define at global scope, declaration will go quickly to the at like top global scope. But if you define declarations in the function level, it will come at the top of function. So this is what will happen. I will have it in comments, var a and y. This is what will happen. Var x and y, sorry, var x and y will quickly come at the top, and this is what behind the scene will happen here. Actually this is not happening, this is just a confusion. What actually happening is x is equal to 1 and y is equal to 2. So you are just replacing out this x with 1 and this y with 2. Okay, and now you are consoling this out, and what will console give you? It will give you 1. And what this outer console will give you? Now tell me. This outer console will give you undefined. Why? Because you are assigning values in this block scope. And now let's have a look at the console. Here you can see. First we got 1 from here. Console, and then we got undefined. Why? Cause why we got undefined? Because like y declaration just went at the top due to hoisting here, and then we got undefined for x here, cause x is not defined at this scope, and then we got 2 here. And why we are getting 2, by the way? Did you get any idea why we are getting 2 here? So why this is happening here? Like why we are getting 2 and getting x undefined? That is very interesting. Okay, so let me take you to the keyboard. Not keyboard, whiteboard. Okay, let's go to the whiteboard. Oh, JS is crazy. Okay, so first of all, what's happening here? These both values are just hoisted here. Okay, these variables which we defined here are hoisted above at the function. Okay, that's totally fine. Now what is happening? Actually this is just an illusion. Like this illusion like we are defining another x variable. No, what is happening actually? Whenever we declare a new variable here, it is actually quickly hoisted above here. Okay, it's declaration, not initialization. Values are not hoisted. And then what happens? And then this statement run, this statement. Okay, behind the scene, x is equal to 1, x becomes 1. Now this is the tricky part. This x is not the one which is hoisted here. This x is not the one which is hoisted here. This is the one which is defined here, cause this x is defined like this is here in the block level scope. Here you can see the block, and block level scope is always preferred first. Okay, for variables block level scope is always preferred first, cause it makes things specific to the block. Okay, so here x is always present and we are doing this again. So what it does mean, this x will be assigned a value 1 here. And this declaration of x which we are doing again will be hoisted here. Okay, and then y will be assigned a value, and as we don't have any other y here in the block scope, so what will happen, this hoisted declaration will come into picture here and will be assigned a value of 2. Okay, clear? Got it? This y will come here and will be assigned a value of 2. Now here when we console log, this local x is being consoling out. This local x is being consoling out, and this global, this hoisted x still, this hoisted x still has a value of undefined. Because I said in block scope always their local variables are preferred first, because we are assigning this local variable x a value of 1, so this global x, hoisted x, will have a still value of undefined. And whenever we console this out here x, this is a local x which is giving 1, and when we come out of this scope, what is happening? We are consoling out x, and what this x is now it's a test of your intelligence, IQ. Now this x is of global scope at external level, because this x is dropped here. When we came out of this local scope, this x is just dropped here in this scope, and this is the global x. And global x of course is undefined, still undefined, because we didn't give any value to this. And but y is not undefined, because we gave value of 2 to y here in this 348 line. So that's why y is being printed out as a 2. So that's why it will give you output of 1 undefined, and then it will be 2. This is the stuff which is going on. 1 undefined and 2. This is what this output will be. Okay, now let's go to our example here. This is all clear, and let me fetch another example for you. Okay, I have just written all of the examples just at once here, so let me just comment this out here. So what will happen here? As I have mentioned, only declarations are being hoisted and initialization don't hoist. So what will happen here? If you just console this out and run this function, you will be thinking like x is equal to 20 and console log x. What will be the output? Like you will assume like there will be a lexical scope here. Like here is the x, and it will find out in the above scope of global scope, and it will just print out 21 on the console, but it's not the case. Here you can see it is giving undefined. So what's happening here? Whenever first of all function looks variable, lookup variable inside the function, if it don't find, then it go towards upper level, upper scope. So here this tricky function will find either x is present in the function. Yes, x is present here, we are declaring the x, but actually the issue is that at this level 358 line x value is not there, cause only declarations are hoisted. So that's why x is accessible here, but its value is not initialized yet. It will be valid if we write this here, it will be then valid, and here you can see 20 is being printed, but we are giving value after that. It is same as you are doing like that, it is same as that, x is equal to 20. Oh sorry, just defining here, declaring here, then consoling out, and then assigning a value. So that's why it's giving undefined. By the way, it's not giving not defined, it is giving undefined. But if we do this, it will say to you like, hey man, x is not defined even. And now if we enable this x is equal to 21 and just remove this, now it will find, is there any variable declared inside this tricky? No, there is no variable named x is declared via using var. So when execution will reach at this level, like 358 line, this line, so this will try to look up for this x inside this tricky function scope. So it will not be able to find any kind of declaration like this kind of thing using var or let. This will not able to find any declaration of x, so it will go above in this scope, and it will find, yeah, x is there, and it will consume its this global scope value here. So it will print 21 here. Okay, so now let me just comment it out. Now what will happen? Yeah, that is it. And if you just console the value of x here, you can find it is being changed at this line, so it is 20 now. Now let's move toward quickly our next example, and okay, so let's have an output here first. It is 3. Why it is 3? What is happening here? There is a function outer first of all, and it has declaration b at this level, and one declaration of b is at this level, and then it's actually declaration as well, initialization as well. So then we have another b, initialization of b here inside this inner function. Now whenever inner function will be called, first of course outer function will be called, then inside it at this level this inner function will be called, then we will reach at this level. This is of course childish thing that you know this flow, of course I am assuming. And then whenever we will reach at this level, what will happen? Now it b will be incremented. What b will be incremented? This b or either this b? No, none of these will be incremented. Now inner function first of all will find declaration of this b inside the scope of this inner function, and it will find, of course, here b is declared. Okay, here b is declared, clear cut. Okay, so but b is undefined at this level. B is undefined at this level because we have not, like, what is happening behind the scene? This is happening var a, because all of the var b, because all of the declarations are just hoisted at the top of the function. So this is what happens. And when at this line b do increment, so we can check the value of b here, which is nan, because at this level b has value of undefined, and when we do incrementation at undefined, this is the error what we get, nan, not a number, because you are doing a incrementation addition operation on a non-integer value, so you will get nan, not a number. So at this level what is happening? Actually this is a confusing and tricky syntax. This is what actually happening at this level. B is being assigned a value of 3, and now b is holding 3. So at this level when you console, b has changed its value, so it is 3. So in simple terms, what is happening behind the scene, in simple syntax, if you can write, this will be in this form, like b is equal to 3, b plus plus, and b is defined here. This is simplest form which is being happened, and if you save, we get the same result. So there is one example left, and I will not explain this out, but it is a most important example. You will solve it and just comment down where you find any kind of doubt or some kind of issues. So this is how JS is bad to all. Not JS is not bad to all, but to ones who don't understand and get the fundamentals properly. So JS is just hard and soul grabber to all people, to those people, sorry, apologies. And yep, that is it for this video. Just comment down, share and like, and give me your feedback. Your feedback is very important to me, and see you into next video, and till then, bye bye.